that will hopefully lead to funding. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate forum to lead anybody on about how future votes should happen, but we certainly would appreciate the community's and PRAC's support on future efforts to help shape and deliver this plan for Oakland next year.
Great, thank you for the update. Commissioner Koss-Reed, I'd like to bring the meeting back to the item, the tree permit appeal. So is your hand raised to discuss the tree permit appeal?
Yes. I would be curious to hear from Mr. Cohen. I think who's the only person who spoke in favor of the continued proceeding of the removal, and just understand, is there urgency to this, or is this something that and why there aren't more speakers in support of removal if this is indeed something that is evidently so important?
I think there were Andy Colvin spoke in favor of it, and there was another woman, I can't remember the woman's name, who spoke in regards to having other individuals control public property and what trees, the damage trees can cause. But in short, I think there is urgency. The concern clearly is that what happens if these trees fall? If the tree falls on one of the buildings on either side, I can't imagine that either one of the owners wouldn't look to the trust to cover the cost of that. Or if it were to fall on the street and someone walking by or someone's car got hit, can't imagine that they wouldn't look to the trust to cover their cost. And these trees, they're some of them I think are towards the end of their lifespan, and one of the biggest one has a big gaping hole at the bottom. I can't speak to exactly how fast or how soon they're going to have some sort of damage, but I also can't put the trust at risk. I don't know why. I'm assuming the people that are living in the apartments on either side, if a tree came crashing through their window, they wouldn't have something to say about that or why they're not concerned about it. But I appreciate their desire to see beauty, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't look once again for the trust to be responsible for whatever damage the trees caused.
So I had one other question for the staff. And this is somewhat hypothetical, but it seems pertinent. If an owner of a lot was planning to sell their lot for development purposes, or was planning to develop a lot but hadn't necessarily made plans or started the entitlement process or whatever, would it be appropriate for them to pursue the development related tree removal permit process? Or would there be anything to prevent them from doing that if they knew that they intended to at some point?
This is a little bit of a hypothetical, but the only way that that the tree services department receives a development related tree removal permit application comes from the permit counter, and it's because someone is submitting plans to develop a land, and while they're figuring out what other permits they need, they check enough boxes. They say, oh, you need a tree permit too. So in order to make that application for development, you need to submit quite a lot of other things, including plans. And I'm not a representative of the planning department, so I can't speak to all of those things in detail, but you don't just apply directly to the tree department for a development related tree removal permit, because you have to submit an entire development application with the rest of the planning department first.
Okay, I understand. I'm just going to ask once more if there are any commissioners who have any additional questions or comments. Yes, Commissioner Ha.
Thank you. I guess I'm wondering if, given that the tree ordinance, there are a lot of limitations to the current tree ordinance, and but even with that, we are Public Works is asked to evaluate tree and assess trees with the current tree ordinance, and also we as a body, PRAC, we hear these appeals for non-development tree permits and assess it with the current tree ordinance. But this is the third tree appeal that I think we've heard in the last several months, and it's challenging to kind of continue to cite the tree ordinance as a reason for just denying appeals or approving them based on what their stance is. But I'm wondering that, given that this, Todd mentioned that typically you see 3 trees max in a tree removal in a tree permit application, and given that there are 7 trees here that have different priorities in terms of the risk that they pose to potential hazard to life or property, I'm wondering if we would be able to do that analysis and see which trees are kind of more higher priority. Given that this is just 7 trees, I mean, removing all 7 of them would have quite an impact in the neighborhood. And I realize that we don't necessarily cite that as a reason for, or we don't assess that because we have to look to the code, but the code doesn't necessarily mention like the timing of the ensuring public health and safety as it relates to health of trees or potential hazards. It doesn't necessarily talk about timing, and I wonder if PRAC is able to ask for that additional report or analysis to be done, or if we're able to partially deny / approve an appeal if there's precedent for that. I guess that's kind of my question.
Hi, this is David Ferguson, the Interim Director of Public Works. Hello?
Yes, David. Yes, we can hear you, David.
Yeah, thank you. I was a little bit late for the meeting, but I think I heard most of it. A lot of good comments. We acknowledge the concerns, but I'm want to be clear. If one is that our staff, who are fully certified to assess trees, probably 40 years combined, maybe more, are now being asked to provide another assessment. And that initial assessment was based on safety. So are you now asking us to perform another assessment that could supersede the recommendation from a safety perspective versus the aesthetics of the trees?
Commissioner Ha, could you clarify your request?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess that's what I'm asking. Is that possible, given that there are 7 trees on this property, and it seems like I'm wondering if all 7 trees need to come down all at the same time, I guess. Is there a way to like phase this, or assess which ones need to come down immediately? Or, I mean, if it's a blanket kind of analysis of safety, then I guess like the initial report kind of uses that blanket analysis of safety to remove all of them, but I'm wondering if we can kind of like reframe that.
This is Tod Lawsen. I can help understand a little bit here. The city gives approval for tree removal of the trees that fit the criteria for removal. The city can't tell the property owner which one is worse. I simply say, yes, it fits the criteria for removal under the ordinance as it's applied. I have no authority to tell that property owner which tree they have to remove first. They apply for this one, and this one. Does it fit the criteria? It's either a yes or a no for each tree. I don't get to tell them, oh, this one is way worse than that one, because you're setting the city up for a legal challenge, because what happens if we have a rainstorm and the other one falls first? Then people start pointing fingers at who said what. I don't have the ability to say when what tree will fall first. I can tell you that per the ordinance, as the trees stand, they have structural defects and problems that fit the permit process. And that's how I judge them.
And I see a hand raised from Greg Clark. I'll go ahead and give you the spotlight if you'd like to respond to something.
Yeah, could you give me one second, please? Sweetheart, come down here. Right. Thank you, commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak to this. Look, I wanted to say, I know I sent in a letter last week on subsection H, and it may have sounded inflammatory, but it was a fair point. The mailboxes that David Moore was referring to were actually outside the building. For example, on the left adjacent building to the lot, they could have easily determined written to the occupants directly, because it showed the exact number of units. And my second point is we're talking about the priority of safety being the overarching factor. But what about the beauty of these trees? What about the value to the neighborhood? These are incredibly important. There's about 120 people who live in buildings right around this lot. And everyone I spoke to said that they've really valued these trees and didn't want to see them to go. And I appreciate the permit applicant's concern about liability, but I know that, for example, that there are practices to bring trees back, for example, crown restoration. I've spoken to arborists outside of the City of Oakland, down in Palo Alto. I spoke to a planning arborist. And, when I discussed this with him, he had questions, well, how are they going to replace the tree canopy? Because obviously you want to maintain the character of the neighborhood, And it was just such a 180-degree experience, and than what we in the neighborhood here have experienced going through this permit process. I'm asking the commissioners, as independent, who provide independent oversight on these decisions, so not just following what the city staff recommend, to take the residents' concerns into account. That's all we're asking, because these trees have real value in the neighborhood. Thank you. I don't have anything else to add to that.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to move us towards a motion and a vote. I'm also, going to allow commissioners to make any comments they would like to at this. I understand that we all need a new tree ordinance. I'm looking forward to hopefully having some new guidance here in the coming years on this that will hopefully smooth a lot of this over. I'm feeling personally that, as an apartment dweller, as someone who wants to make sure that everyone is notified and engaged in the changes to their neighborhood, I'm not entirely comfortable feeling that the neighborhood was properly notified, that all of the residents were properly notified. I'm probably going to vote to uphold the appeal. And so I just wanted to state that out there. However, I want to open it up to the commission and maybe see if we wanted to table a motion to move this item. And I guess also before I do that, could I ask staff for clarification, just because we might be voting for a negative. When we vote yes or no to this item, what is it we're saying potentially? Or I guess maybe I should wait for a motion first.
I would, this is Commissioner Ha. Unfortunately, Commissioner Moore, who we are part of the tree committee, we have not been able to meet separately on this item and discuss and get to achieve consensus on what our recommendation as a subcommittee is. But I still kind of question the application to remove all 7 of them. I guess I understand that we need to look to the tree ordinance and assess based on what the arborist sort of professional evaluations of the health of the trees. But you know, I guess as a commissioner, I can't. It's really challenging to kind of continue to look at that kind of blanket code statement and just you know, uphold these permit decisions. And I would ask if we could, as a commission, if there's a way that we could maybe, if there's a new application that could ask for some of the trees, maybe, you know, if we're not able to see that assessment that David Moore said that they have the professional ability to do, if we're not able to see that, can we see like an additional report that's from another arborist, or if the owner is able to get their separate kind of assessment, and you know, if we're able to get an assessment from an arborist that is assigned from community members. I guess I think I need more information before we're able to just kind of give a decision on this tonight. So that is kind of my my individual commissioner's assessment of this, and I'd be curious to hear what Commissioner Moore thinks on that.
I would agree with Commissioner Hall that we haven't had a chance to meet outside after we met with Tod, and then we met with Tod and David, but she and I have not had an opportunity to meet separately. So I think having that opportunity to do so might help us come to a better decision. So I'm in agreement with Commissioner Hall.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would also still entertain a motion if someone wanted to present it. If someone wanted to act on this tonight, I would be open to hearing that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Is that Commissioner
Hi,
Torres?
I'm sorry. Hi, yes, hi. I would also like to have some more time to think about this. You know, just to look over, but I do want to just say, you know, I just do want to thank staff for, you know, the recommendations and for experts on trees. But I think I personally need some more time to go over, and I would like to know, to have more of a debrief with the 2 commissioners who oversee the tree committee, and to get some more info.
Okay. I mean, at this point, we might have lost a quorum for voting if I'm hearing some tentative abstentions here. I would ask staff, what happens if we don't vote on this item?
There would have to be a motion, an action taken on this item, which could be asking for it to come back with whatever information it is that is the pleasure of the body.
Hi, this is Commissioner Allen. Hearing everyone's feedback, I personally think that that is the route that we need to take. perhaps there should be a motion to suspend a vote this evening so that there's more time to have further investigation and analysis done so that people have can make a more informed decision.
Okay, so I mean, I hear this. I think that these decisions are always very difficult. They're always kind of gut wrenching. They're very difficult. My preference would be to move on this tonight and just move on with the rest of our business. And I say that as a great lover of trees, as someone who founded a tree planting nonprofit that is still thriving and has worked on a couple different urban forestry plans. However, if that is what the commission would like to do, I would entertain a motion for postponing this for our February meeting. If someone who makes that motion would also like to add what additional information you would like to consider that would be gathered in that time, even if that's just the meeting of the tree committee, then that's fine too.
I would amend that suggested motion that we receive reporting more about kind of prioritizing the tree removal. Like there are 7 trees, like can we get an additional assessment? If the city cannot do it, then can we get a professional arborist from the appellate side, and can we get a professional arborist from the applicant? Because I feel like we need, what I talked about previously for all 7 trees, it would be helpful for us to make a decision looking at kind of each tree.
Right. I think that this is a particularly shocking application, given the number of trees, which is much larger than what we normally see. I believe that both of the staff that have presented on this are arborists, and they've both said that they meet the criteria for removal. I'm not sure. Staff, do you have reactions to doing additional analysis, or perhaps the applicant for getting some other further analysis?
Yeah, this is an unprecedented request. There's no reference to this type of requirement in a tree removal permit application. And it, like Todd said, it puts the city in an inappropriate legal position of we can't necessarily predict the future, or we're not managing the tree removal process. There's things that can happen during that process, like construction equipment moving around. There's a lot of potential scenarios that could have unintended consequences. That if those unintended consequences happen, that could put the city in a legal jeopardy. And I cannot at this time commit to doing that without consulting a higher legal authority that can advise on the subject.
Okay, so then if we did postpone for a future meeting, would it be just so that the tree committee could meet and make a recommendation? I'll entertain that motion if someone wants to make it.
I have a question for staff. If that's the case, then are we able to partially deny or approve these appeals? Or is that you kind of need to either deny or approve them and then wait for an additional permit application and an appeal, which could take a longer time?
We don't ship out half pieces of permit. I think that would also be an unprecedented request to partially approve a permit, and I don't think that it would be legally hold water if it was partially approved. So yes, the answer would have to be either yes or no.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Chair Riley, but I see two hands in the public attendees, and I'm wondering if we could hear statements from them.
We've already heard public comment, and so I think we're going to go ahead and finish with public comment and move on to moving the item.
I'm willing to make a motion
Okay, that's Commissioner Koss-Reed. Go ahead and state your motion.
that we table this for tonight and it come back at the next meeting, and that in that interim period, the two commissioners who co-chair the tree committee meet and bring back a recommendation. I had been prepared to make a motion to move forward with upholding the decision to remove the trees, but it was really predicated on the idea that there was pretty clear alignment and thorough due diligence by both staff and the commissioners. And I don't think it was not for lack of trying. I think all that has a lot of time has clearly been put into this, but that it would be much stronger to have, I think, a clear, strong recommendation from both commissioners who have gotten closest to this issue. So yeah, that would be my, sorry to add the clause in there in the interim, but hopefully it's clear. My motion is to table this for tonight and have it come back at the next meeting with a strong recommendation from the two, or a recommendation from the co-chairs of the tree committee.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I would second that, Commissioner Torres.
Okay, if there are no more additional comments, then I would ask staff to lead us in a vote.
This is Commissioner Allen. I'm voting yes to postpone the decision for this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Haw?
Yes.
Commissioner Koss-Reed? We will come back to Commissioner Koss-Reed.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Torres?
Yes.
Commissioner Walton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have closed out that item. I appreciate everyone who attended tonight and everyone who presented and all of the work that has gone into bringing that item here. We will discuss it next month. Going to move us on now to new business. This is the election of the commission's chair and vice chair.